Every out's been a strikeout. Everything else has been a non-ball in play. So here is James Outman.
He has been effectively wild.
The pitcher or the podcast? There's a podcast named Effectively Wild as well.
Well, the pitcher, but yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's where they got I think it was a baseball term before they named it a podcast.
You think so?
I don't think they coined it.
Fascinating. You're a treasure trove.
Otani, le Statlas, le before ils sont chouettes, les avis pétantes et super une fête. Je pense que c'est effectively cool. Je pense que c'est effectively wild. Effectivement sauvage. Effectivement sauvage.
Hello and welcome to episode 2492 of Effectively Wild, a FanGraphs baseball podcast brought to you by our Patreon supporters. I'm Meg Rowley of FanGraphs, and I am joined by Ben Lindbergh of The Ringer. Ben, how are you?
Doing okay. Congrats to the Knicks. Congrats to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
But it's baseball's time now.
I think we can let the Knicks have like a couple more days. They've waited a very long time for this.
Yes, they have.
You know, it's been a beat for the Carolina Hurricanes. Really tremendous sports year for the Meg Rowley, Lindsay Adler, Emma Baccellieri group chat. We're really crushing it, you know? We're doing good. Yep.
It's been exciting. They were both exciting series with some comebacks, and the city is as sports-pilled as I've ever seen it.
Incredible.
Pent-up demand for a Knicks championship. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty palpable, but I do always sort of celebrate, even as a non-other sport hater, it's always nice when MLB gets the spotlight for a few months. That little interregnum, that little interlude and lull, well, some people would consider it a lull, but we don't, between NHL, NBA, and NFL returning. This is baseball's time to shine.
Well, and look, we got the W in full swing.
Oh, sure. There's always other sports going on.
Yeah, this is a fertile sports time.
The World Cup is happening. Not sure if you're aware of that.
You know what? I'm gonna say this. I feel like I need to admit this as a soccer doubter. I remain a soccer doubter, but also it's a lot of fun, man. World Cup's fun. It's fun. It is so nice of them to tell you who all of the broadcasters are. I don't know any of these people. They'll be like, this is Jimmy John. That's not anybody. He is your 4-time champion for Stratford upon Avon. And I'm just like, that's great for him. I love that for him, for old Jimmy John. Yeah. I also have been amused. I noticed this yesterday that they are not referring to, I don't know if this is true across all the broadcasts. They had cut to one of the games in Philly, and they weren't calling it Lincoln Financial Fields, which is where they're playing the games, which is where the Eagles normally play. They called it something else. And I was like, is it because they don't think in an international, are they the feed internationally, and they don't think an international audience would be able to keep track of all the dumb names that we give to our stadiums? Anyway, it's been great fun. Also, there's some crazy new penalties in soccer. Mistaken identity is a penalty. That's a thing they check for. That's amazing. Soccer's great. I mean, it's not for me most of the time, but only most of the time. This time, sports with stakes. It's hard to beat sports with stakes, even if it's not your sport, you know?
Yeah. I'd sign up for the Meg Rowley alternate World Cup broadcast. That sounds fun, where all the players are named after sandwich chains. Sounds
Jimmy
fun.
John's. We should do it after I've had my wisdom tooth pulled later today, and just see
See how that goes. Yeah.
See how it goes.
While the NBA Finals were happening and everyone was swept up in basketball fever here in New York and nationally and internationally, everyone was really getting into this game that kind of went viral called 82-0. Were you familiar with the 82-0 phenomenon?
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, it's 82and0.com, and it's this game you can play where you build out your all-time team, and you just kind of randomly draw teams from certain decades, and then you just have to fill out the 5 positions, and you take your pick from each team/decade you got, and then you put together the best starting 5 you can, and it supposedly simulates how good that team would be, and you're aiming to go 82-0, which is possible but quite difficult. Sure. And there is a baseball equivalent to this called 162-0, as you might expect. It's at 162baseball.com. Okay. And I tend not to get into games like this that much, but I tried 82-0, and then I tried 162-0. And I got to say, 162-0, no shots at the people who made this, but I don't think baseball lends itself to this kind of game nearly as well, because you have to draft 17 roster spots in 162-0.
17?
17, because it's baseball. And so you're drafting your whole lineup and your rotation and your relievers and everything. And it's taking forever. And part of the fun of 82-0 is that it doesn't take that long. And so you can just kind of re-roll. Oh, I was close. Oh, man, I was one away from nailing it that time. I'll go back for one more try. And then it takes a few minutes to do. 162-0, I'm settling in like, oh my gosh, there's still more picks. I still have to fill out my roster. This is taking forever. And I think it does just kind of speak to the difference in structure of those sports, where in basketball, you can go get one superstar and it can at least propel you to the playoffs. That can really make a major difference. Whereas in baseball, that is not enough. Helps to have a superstar, but it is not sufficient. And so you really do, it does put into perspective. I don't think it makes nearly as good a game, but it is sort of illuminating when it comes to, you play these two games back to back, and constructing a strong baseball team really is different from constructing a strong basketball team. And you need much more than one or two really good guys. So it's actually kind of illuminating.
I mean, I guess it makes sense insofar as, like, you know, those are the guys who are going to be most impactful. But it sort of strikes me as the coward's way out. You should have to build a 26-man roster. Like, come on.
Yeah. Go all in if you're going to go that far. Yeah, might as well.
If you can't figure out a couple of bench guys to get you to 162, then what kind of roster building acumen do you really have? You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah. And I question the simulation engines that are powering these things, but nonetheless, it's all in good fun. But it is a good exercise in remembering some guys, obviously. That's really what it's for, I think. All right. We have much to discuss, some good, some bad, and some on the field, some off the field. Actually, kind of all on the field in a way, which is part of the problem. We will be talking about the Giants' Pride Night fiasco. But I do want to just begin by marveling at The Miz, which I mentioned briefly last time when you weren't here, but this was nuts, just watching Jacob Misiorowski plow through the Phillies on Friday. And he's been good for a long time now. He is on a historic roll, but this game was as good a game as you're ever going to see, just about. It was a one-hitter thanks to one Kyle Schwarber single, and that was it. That was all that separated him from perfection. It was a 15 strikeout, 95 pitch, 77 strikes or something like that, and a 100 game score and complete game shutout and a record Maddox, record high strikeouts with that few pitches. It was just pure dominance. And it seems like every time out now, he is raising the bar velo-wise. He's just kind of competing against himself and topping his previous mark every single time he goes out there. He hit 104.5 in this game, and he was still firing 103 in the ninth. And just like the majority of his pitches were triple digits, and not just triple digits, but I mean, he's just 102, 103, 104. Yeah. It is unbelievable. So over his past 8 starts, he has a .17 ERA, which is a record over that many starts, at least openers excluded. And you could say, well, he's not going as deep into games as pitchers from earlier eras, which is true. But in this one, he went the distance and just looked like he could have kept going. And it is just, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That just the stuff and also the pure results. So I fear for his UCL, obviously.
I was just about to ask.
As long as it lasts.
How would you describe your anxiety level as it pertains to the Miz? Because I could imagine with every strikeout in that game, it ratcheting just ever so slightly higher.
Yeah.
With every, fastball thrown over 100 miles an hour, you're just sitting there like everyone else is having a great time and you're eating your hair, shaking, throwing up on the floor. Just like, oh my God, he's going to blow out. He's going to blow out so soon.
74 strikes, not 77. Sorry, I oversold him. He wasn't that good. Yeah, I am worried about it. Obviously, it does feel like an Icarus ticking time bomb situation, but I'm trying to put that aside for now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just enjoy this. Because it is so impressive that, okay, we all understand the risks. We all understand that maybe he can't keep doing this forever, but I'm going to try to enjoy it while it lasts and not just have that kind of looming dread just because so many guys get hurt. They're getting hurt constantly. So if you're going to get hurt, might as well just go out blazing, just go out 104. I don't know. We'll never know whether if he were throwing merely 101 or something, the risk would be that low. It should be lower in theory, but maybe he'll blow out either way. Might as well just kind of tap into it or just hope that he is a freak of nature and somehow he can sustain this.
It is a place where, I struggle. I don't have quite the same level of trepidation as you do, not because I don't. Obviously, the game is better when the best pitchers are pitching, but simply because we have seen that, there are plenty of guys who don't throw as hard as the Miz who blow out. And there are guys who throw hard for a long time and they manage to stay relatively healthy. But one of the features of our new game graphs, which include pitcher cards, right? So if you go to our rebuilt scoreboard section of the site, you can go to game graphs and we have these snazzy new player cards that Keaton primarily architected, and they're so cool. And they have a guy's pitch usage and his arsenal in the game, and you can see his locations. And the pitch arsenal section will show you both how his pitches rated either by Stuff Plus or Pitching Bot, and the swinging strike rate that they got, and the rate of strikes outside the zone and their zone percentage. And it also will show you average velocity, and then if a pitch is up or down relative to the seasonal average, it'll show you by how much. And every time I look at a Misiorowski pitch card and see velo plus 1.5 relative to seasonal average, I'm just like, buddy, you were good in the last start when it was lower, you can just remember that. Yeah. And so I love it when really great site features like exacerbate my background anxiety, but it does work that way for me.
Yes. Well, he has entered the deGrom zone for me, and you could take that multiple ways. One is that he's just completely unhittable, which was deGrom at his peak, but also just you don't need to be doing all that just because you were so good, even though you were not throwing this hard. Yeah. And so I always wanted deGrom to just, take a tick or two off here. You were amazing throwing 96, averaging 96. You don't need to be averaging 99. But the Miz, there are really 3 guys who've been in the deGrom zone for me lately. I think it's deGrom himself originally, and then it was Tarek Skubal last year when he finished off a complete game against the Guardians. This was in May, and it was 5-0 game, and nobody was on base or anything, and it was the 9th, and he was facing Gabriel Arias, and it was like he threw 102.6 to pick up that 13th strikeout and finish up the 94 pitch complete game shutout. And that time I was thinking, you could have probably gotten that by him at 101 or something. You didn't necessarily need to be pumping 103 in there. And he's held up okay, other than, of course, the loose body. But it's deGrom, Skubal, and the Miz, really, who've entered that realm where, wow, they are just completely untouchable to the extent that they could probably get by with throwing a little slower, and they just won't. And it's impressive and amazing, and I marvel at it. And also, I'm a little worried. But the thing about the Miz is that earlier this year, he was not throwing quite this hard, as you note. He was still throwing very hard, but not this hard, and he was not as effective. I was hoping that I could do a little, okay, here he is before and after he's just achieved escape velocity like this, and show that, oh, he was still really effective that way. He could have kept doing that. Well, he was good to start the season, but he wasn't great, let alone this, just best pitcher in baseball, maybe best pitcher of all time kind of stuff right now.
Right.
But I think it's not just the velo. It's the fact that he is throwing strikes, and that is how he was so efficient in this game. Because typically you think strikeouts, they take more pitches per plate appearance, at least, than when you get balls in play and outs on balls in play, even though when you get a lot of strikeouts, you get a lot of outs that way. And so your pitch count is not necessarily higher because if you're a pitch to contact guy, a lot of the contact turns into hits and then it resets and you have to start from scratch again. But the fact that he managed to get 15 Ks with only 95 pitches, he was just not really walking guys. He was not going to deep counts. He was not missing. And that is really what has characterized this Miz streak for me, even more so than the speed, is that if you just, so he's made 14 starts this season. If you just lop him in two and you look at his first 7 and his second 7, in the first 7, he had a 48.2% zone rate, which was 30th out of 75 qualified pitchers over that span. And it was even lower at the start of the season, and it's kind of ramped up over time. But just that first half of his season, 48.2, so kind of a middle of the pack zone rate. In this second stretch of 7 starts, he has a 57.6% zone rate, which leads all qualified pitchers over that span. So he has turned into the ultimate strike thrower, and not just because people are swinging and missing at his pitches, but just in terms of he is filling up the zone. He is just like, here it is, hit it, and they can't. And I think this is smart, obviously. You know, this saves him a little strain, even if he's increasing the strain on a per pitch basis. Maybe he's being a bit more efficient per inning, per start, so that's good. But I think he has just realized that, hey, this is sort of a cheat code. This is a life hack. Nobody can hit me. I'm throwing so hard and my stuff is moving and it's just so nasty that I don't have to mess around here. I don't have to nibble. I don't have to get guys to chase. I can just throw it right down the middle and they can't hit it. So that, I think, and maybe it goes hand in hand with the fact that throwing 103, 104 is giving him the confidence to just throw it right in there. You know, if he were just throwing merely 101 or something, he wouldn't have the confidence to just throw it right down the middle. So maybe you can't have one without the other, but I think this is actually a better version of the Miz, putting the speed aside. If you're that good, even when you're not really ramping it up, then just throw strikes, you know? Can't hurt.
Yeah, and we know that there is a limit to the effectiveness of, very straight fastballs, even when they're super hard, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't have nothing else on it, but that's not true of him, right?
Yeah.
And all of his other stuff is so interesting, and it does move, and he went from being a guy who it seemed like was very intriguing, but potentially always a little inefficient, to a guy who was just like reliably going 7. And I do think his ability to kind of throw like a FU fastball and stay ahead in counts and avoid, walking guys, it's having a really positive impact. I do, again, worry about him splintering apart, but I mean, he is Charizard, right? Like his fastball, because he's with the fire. I know about Pokemon. I'm cool. I'm young. You know,
he has evolved. It's true. This is the fully evolved version of the Miz, maybe. Yeah,
I like the baby version of Charizard the best though. I don't like the evolution ones as much. I think he's best when he's in his like initial form. I have an opinion about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you and he could talk about that.
I don't think
prefer
we could.
Charizard technically, I guess, is the evolved version.
Oh, he is? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because, you got Charmander.
Oh, you're right, Charmander. Never mind. I'm a loser. See, I would go in trying to have credibility, and he'd be like, this lady doesn't know what she's talking about.
She doesn't speak his language, though.
She doesn't know about Charizard at all. What's the other one? Isn't there?
I think Jimmy John is the name of the Pokemon.
Right, there you go. Isn't there another? Isn't there a different dragon though? Oh, the Mega Charizard.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like the Mega Charizard. Why do they make him a different color?
Sounds perfect for you. Has Meg right in the name.
I know, but I don't need to be the Charizard. Mm-hmm. Why is he blue? Is this a shiny version? I gotta learn about some stuff.
Anyway, in that stretch of...
I love how ground is listed as a weakness. How is ground a weakness? What does that mean?
In his first 7 starts, he walked 9.7% of batters. And in the second 7 starts, he has walked 4%. So he has more than halved his walk rate in that span while raising his strikeout rate. So his strikeout minus
when he's fully evolved. That makes
walk
sense.
rate has gone from 28.4% to 37.4. It's good podcasting. You just read Pokemon stats. I'll read Miz stats.
I'm looking at the Pokedex, and he's so cute when he's little,
Yeah,
he's just like a little cute guy. And then the problem with Charizard as a comp for the Miz is that like, even when he was younger, he wasn't little. He has a baby face,
It's true.
He's still very young in his face. And he is sorry, I'm going to stop being weird about the Miz in a second. He has a youthful face in part because he has a very joyful face. Like when he is happy about how something has gone on the mound, he has moments where he's doing like intense baseball man stuff. But a lot of the time he just is very smiley, which I think always reads younger to me. And so that part is like Charmander, but he was never tiny, except I suppose when he was like a little boy, but that's not how we know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as
he was probably
met him,
10 feet tall when he was a child
huge.
anyway.
He's probably a pretty big baby, but
Probably a pretty big baby. What is ground? How is that a weakness? I don't they're susceptible to ground types?
Right.
Oh, I love Diglett. Okay, we can move on now. Sorry.
The ground can be a weakness for all of us when we fall over. But the Miz looks diminutive after watching Wemby all week. But by baseball standards, he is huge. It is true. Yeah. So,
I don't know about Wemby. This...
He didn't cover himself in glory either from a playing or a sportsmanship perspective.
Yeah.
He's quite young. He will learn. He will also evolve.
I mean, hopefully. Otherwise, we'll have a heel as the face of the NBA, which, that's not without precedent.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Just a couple of phenoms. Yeah. The Miz has a couple of years on Wemby, too. So he will mature. Anyway.
Okay.
Right. I wrote my Big Brewers piece, by the way. So for anyone who has been...
had a chance to read it yet.
Yeah, who's been waiting for the follow-up to our discussion on episode 2486 when I claimed the topic of the Brewers' clutchness. Well, now I have dispatched with that topic. I don't know if I cracked the code the way they seemingly have with clutchness, but I wrote about it at some length with a lot of stats and some reporting, so I will not rehash it here, but I will link to it on the show page for anyone who wants even more on that topic. All right. Okay. Also, I have been tracking, just keeping a little eye on Teruaki Sato, who is really raking in NPB. And just a little preview, because the expectation is that he will be posted this offseason. So I know that we have talked a lot about how it looks like it's going to be a weak free agent class and just not a lot of difference makers, and some guys signed extensions and everything else. But Sato has a 236 WRC plus in NPB. He is, as we speak, batting .357, .439, .670. And last year, he had a 182 WRC plus, and he hit 40 dingers. So he's been a good hitter, a very good hitter for a while now. But he also seems to be leveling up and peaking at the right time. And he is just 27. He doesn't turn 28 until next March. And so just putting this on everyone's radar is, if it's not already, that he's presumably going to get paid. I guess we can't say for sure after how Murakami's free agency went. And that's actually kind of an interesting comp because Sato strikes out a lot too. And he has a 27.3% strikeout rate this year, and it was 27 or so percent last year too. And so I wonder whether Murakami hitting as well as he was before he got hurt, if he keeps that up after he returns, whether that will actually help Sato's free agency. And, I don't know what the scouts say and what the tiny sample stats about how he does against good velo and everything. I'm not sure whether that tells the same story that it did for Murakami. But yeah, if you didn't catch Sato in the WBC where he hit well in a handful of games too, if you can, check him out, follow him. He plays for Hanshin. Yeah. And that's going to be possibly he should be the headliner when it comes to NPB players coming over, presumably. So to get a guy, he's not as young as Murakami was, but he's still very much in his prime. And he is, I think, in better position than Murakami in that Murakami's peak seasons in Japan came a few years before he was posted. And then he had injuries and he had strikeouts and, Sato is maybe going to be coming off, assuming he's healthy and keeps this up. He's going to be coming off of his career year. And yeah, there are teams that are going to be interested in him. He plays third base. He plays some outfield. So there's a little bit of flexibility, or he could fit into more than one slot for potential suitors. So yeah, we'll talk more about him, obviously, as we get closer to the offseason. We'll get Longenhagen's take and everything else. But just scouting the stat line, it is. Now, he does have a 439 BABIP. I'm not saying that's not sustainable, but it's probably not sustainable. But
you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, perhaps. But even if he just replicated his line from last year when he had a more believable 323 BABIP and still was hitting 40 home runs and slugging almost 600. And again, even if it's, I think offense has bounced back slightly in Japan, it's still certainly a dead ball era over there, relatively speaking, historically speaking. So you got to put that in context too. And that's what WRC Plus does, I guess. And the numbers are pretty eye popping. So yeah, start salivating if you need a third baseman or outfielder. Maybe he can be your guy, and maybe Murakami can help him. I have been thinking a little bit about what this year's trade deadline is going to look like, because we're well into the season when people are posting their trade deadline previews and everything. Mm-hmm. And I know that didn't we declare a deadline or something, or a starting date for, I forget what we said.
Yes, we were initially, or at least I had initially advocated that you not be able to do trade deadline talk until the 16th of June, using the arbitrary date of when the Giants traded for Devers last year, because
happy 1 year anniversary for that trade.
I was of the belief that we should understand that deal within the context of the deadline, because part of what seemed to motivate San Francisco's decision-making was like, let's get this done so that this guy can help us potentially push for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. And then what happened? But so I think that people are sort of in safe territory now. It's not technically the 16th yet, but we're close enough that I think you're okay to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people did not abide by that embargo.
They did
anyway.
Not.
So you want to read the whole Jeff Passan preview of the trade deadline? You can. It's out there. Yeah. And especially because this is a late trade deadline this year, August 3rd. And so that probably pushes back the starting point a little more, or it should in theory. Anyway, it will be June 16th by the time people are listening to this podcast. So we have not broken our own arrangement. Which side has gotten the worse end of the Devers deal, by the way, now that 1 year's gone by. I saw there was an Athletic piece where Jen McCaffrey and Andrew Baggerly did a tag team retrospective on that trade, and the headline was that it had been a dud for both sides, basically. Yeah. It's a lose-lose. I don't know which side has lost more, but it hasn't worked out well for either of them because the proceeds of that trade for the Red Sox are pretty much already gone,
right. and blossoming elsewhere,
Yeah, in Kyle Harrison's case, and then
Tibbs has seen his stock rise too, as a prospect. So,
and then the Giants have Rafael Devers, which is not ideal either, I guess, because he is still about a league average hitter, which is not going to cut it for a guy who's not really given you much else and also is making the money that he's making. So,
but the good news is that he's signed through 2033.
Boy, yeah, that's not great.
Such a long time.
At least he wore a Pride Night cap, I assume. We would have heard about it if he didn't.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a little win.
He's got that going for him.
But I guess if you had to say like which side would be more likely to take it back or want to undo it or less likely to want to undo it, I don't think the Red Sox would want him back because really, like, they would not be any better if they had him is the thing. Right. It's not like the Red Sox couldn't use some offense. They certainly could, but he has not provided that for San Francisco lately. So if he were on the Red Sox right now, they would not necessarily be better off. They would just be paying a lot more for a still lackluster offense. So
yeah, I think that if I were having to take one side of that deal, I'd still, oh God, it feels bad to say, but I'd still rather be the club shipping him out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. If the Red Sox have Contreras now, they might not have Contreras if they had Devers.
And look, it's not to say that they have managed to do a whole lot with that savings yet necessarily, but the fact that they were able to ship out like $250 million, and who knows what the future holds. Maybe Devers is able to course correct. Maybe he is able to start hitting like something approaching his old self. We saw that once he was, oh God, he did a hit worse once he got to San Francisco. That's right. Oh, I had it backwards in my memory, Ben. It's not good. It's just a bad situation. And so as much as I think that they being the Red Sox maybe were too quick to part with Harrison, like it's just it looks bad. Yeah. It looks bad. And they being the Red Sox were, a little they were quick on the trigger with Tibbs too, right? Like he's not a Red Sox, he's a Dodger now, and a pretty good one. He was he wasn't a top 100 guy for us preseason, but he was a pick to click, and he's hitting well in AAA. He's got 159 WRC plus. So you have two notable young players who have gotten better elsewhere, and you're kind of stuck with this giant contract that you're not going to be able to move. So I don't know. You better hope you can play better because you're just in it until 2033.
Oh, that's a long
such a long time.
Yeah.
I wonder how well we'll all be doing in that year.
Yeah.
How will
Fingers
things
crossed
be
for us? Yeah.
Maybe. Wouldn't it be nice if the worst thing that was happening in 2033 was Rafael Devers not playing well for the Giants?
That would be nice. Yeah.
If that ends up being the state of the world, then maybe the Giants say, yeah, this was a bad trade, but like, look at the utopia we've come to live in.
On the bright side. Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe the sole remaining player the Red Sox acquired for Devers, Jose Bayo, maybe not to be confused with Brian Bayo, maybe he'll suddenly blossom. He's in A-ball right now, which is not great when you're 21, but he's pitching okay. So maybe he'll salvage this thing. But really just getting out from under the contract, it's kind of a win from the Red Sox perspective, sadly. Yeah. And Wilson Contreras is just, he's raking. He's been one of the best hitters in baseball. But Posey described Devers as a dude when they acquired him, and he has not been a dude. He was hitting like a dude in May, but then he has cooled off again in June. So it was not just a slow start, sadly.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, rough. That's one of those that neither side really doesn't reflect particularly well on either side. Okay. Anyway, that was a digression. I was thinking about the trade deadline because this season has been kind of confusing when it comes to the teams that have been good and the teams that have been bad. And so it stands to reason that the trade deadline would also be kind of confusing just because it's hard to figure some of these teams, and are they contenders, and is it too late for them, and what do they do? And so when you have a hard time evaluating these teams, and you have a lot of teams that have surprised us in one direction or the other, well, at the trade deadline, you do have to define yourself, sort of, or you have to even sort of sitting it out is one way of defining yourself.
Right.
And so there are a lot of teams that, hey, okay, the Cardinals, are they good? Is this real?
Right.
The White Sox, are they good? Is this real?
Right.
They're ahead of schedule. Are they going to lean into this? Are they going to double down and say, yeah, we believe and we're going for it? If you're the Mets, if you're the Tigers, if you're some of the other disappointing teams, I guess the Phillies have kind of righted the ship, but, you know, there are some teams there that were expected to be good that have not been. And so do you cut bait? Do you decide to sell? There are just a lot of teams kind of in that middle ground where it's they will have to pick a lane. Now, they have plenty of time to pick a lane is the thing, is they still have, because the trade deadline is so late and because it's just mid-June, it's they don't have to decide right now unless they do want to make a Devers-style deal, a potential impact acquisition, because that's the other thing with the deadline being this late. You're not getting as much benefit.
Time,
So you're not even getting 2 months, really. So if you do want to make a move, then it does behoove you to make a deal in advance of the deadline, even though teams typically procrastinate. So, yeah, teams will have to kind of pick a side, or teams that are sort of like the Pirates, you know, is there enough there? Can they make a run? The A's just hovering right around 500, those two teams, or someone like the Blue Jays or the Diamondbacks. Like, there are just a lot of teams there that are in that bucket, or the Cubs, who've been bad after being so good. It's just like a ton of teams in that range where not only are there records, or the Marlins who have been coming on lately, they're 500 now. The Rangers have picked things up. They are a game below 500 as we speak here on Monday. Just a ton of teams in that no man's land. So I am kind of curious to see whether that leads to a dud of a deadline, or just like everyone wants to buy, or whether the wheat will have separated from the chaff somewhat by the time we get to the deadline. I don't know. How will this shake out?
It makes me think that we might be in for a deadline where like a lot of relievers move around.
Well, yeah.
You know, it strikes you as the kind of deadline where you might have a lot of teams that are, you know, maybe simultaneously adding and subtracting. I imagine we'll have some activity, but the number of guys who move and are like real impact players, it strikes me as likely to be low. I think that the Tigers are going to need to make a decision sooner rather than later about what they want to do with Skubal. Because if you're, and you know, he made his first start back. It didn't go great, although weirdly that game ended up going worse for the Guardians because of the injuries that they sustained in the course of it, including Jose Ramirez. Yeah, broke the hamate in his left hand. Will need surgery. And Chase Salado got dinged again because it's a day that ends in Y. They don't know how serious his injury is. I don't mean to sound cavalier about it. It's just the poor guy is always hurt. So, but, you know, Skubal wasn't as dominant and sharp as he could be. His velocity was intact. So, you know, I think that's a positive indicator that he's at least back from a stuff perspective, even if, you know, working out the precision isn't quite done yet. But it's a weird choice to have to make because the AL sucks. You know, you have so many teams that are below 500. You have, you know, I still think that the Central is a winnable division because the Guardians are more vulnerable now. They've been sort of tumbling down the standings. The White Sox, no offense, don't have the pitching to sustain this. So, you know, I think you can make a run at them in a serious way. Surely you think you're better than the Twins, no offense to the Twins, but it's winnable potentially, but also you're going to get so much more in prospect return if you ship him out soon. So I don't know. They have to decide how decisive to be. You know what I mean? Because like the decision to move him, once you do that, then you should just assess like who else is movable for us right now? Because if you move Scooble, you may as well move everyone who's on an expiring contract and has some value, right? You're just restocking for next year, and the future after that. So I think that he has the potential to be the single most impactful player who moves, and he might not move at all. Of course, we've had years where we've said that and we're like, it's going to be a quiet deadline. Like there's a lot of teams clustered around 500 and then there's a ton of activity, some of which is more meaningful in terms of the scale of the trade, either, you know, the guy shipping out or the return or both. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I think that everyone in the NL who's remotely good is going to want to add, and everyone in the AL is going to be like, aren't we so close to a playoff spot though? That it might, again, be a bunch of like relievers. Could be a very reliever heavy deadline.
Yeah.
But
and the White Sox are calling up some prospects, and that's always exciting when you can. It's like Gage Jump has pitched pretty well for the A's lately. They need pitching. It's nice when you can supply some internally. And so the White Sox, you know, they called up Braden Montgomery, of course, but also they've got some arms, and will that be enough? I don't know. But yeah, they've gone from, on our preview when we were talking about some of the signings they made over the offseason, hey, are they getting these guys so that they can flip them at the deadline? Is that the plan? Or do they actually feel so frisky and feisty that they think they can make a run at it? And they're making a run at it. And I'm certainly enjoying it. And it's not a fluke in terms of the underlying stats, run differential and everything. Can they keep it up? I don't know. But yeah, they get Murakami back. It's a fun time to watch this team. So I'd like to see them add, because I do think it is a pretty winnable division. And winnable wild cards too. So yes, they have to decide how decisive to be. They gotta just drop in to see what condition their condition is in, and see how they do. So it's going to be fun to follow, and I kind of doubt that there will be that much separation among teams even in another month and a half or whatever it is, just because there's a lot of mediocrity here. Or just look like the Nationals are 2 games over 500 right now.
Right.
You know, like there are just a ton of teams in that range, some of which were expected to be good and contend. Teams like the Blue Jays, obviously, and then teams that no one really saw coming and figured would be bad and have been good. So this will be quite a deadline. And just as we were talking about this, I see the Ken Rosenthal tweet, Giants testing waters on potential trades. And it mentions that they might have difficulty moving Rafael Devers. Yeah, it seems doubtful that they could do that. However, if they do want to move a few pitchers, I guess we could suggest some. So we will discuss what happened on Friday, which was Pride Night in San Francisco. And the Giants pitchers who appeared in that game, or 4 of the 5, they took a cue from Clayton Kershaw, and they did not.
Blake Trinan.
And, well, yeah, I guess that's true. Lately, I was trying to think, like, did Kershaw start this?
No.
And he didn't, because I had forgotten this, but Nick Ahmed did this a couple of years ago with the Genesis quote, the Bible verse. Because Kershaw, I thought maybe he had started the writing the verse on there, and maybe he helped popularize that, because obviously he's very visible and a prominent player in the game. But obviously this sort of demonstration has been going on for some time. And yes, Blake Trinan, this time he just refused to wear the Pride Night cap, right? I was thinking, because
he pulled a Rays, he pulled a Jason Adam, and
it was company. Those 5, Jason Adam, Jalen Beeks, Brooks Raley, Jeffrey Springs, Ryan Thompson, all those Rays guys who removed the logo from their Pride Night caps or jerseys or whatever. That was back in 2022. I was thinking, like, why is it always pitchers? What's happening with pitchers? But it's not always pitchers, I guess, because there was Nick Ahmed. And then I think also Alex Call year did not wear the cap along with Trinan. So
yeah, and I think in the Giants contingent, they maybe had a position player or two, if I'm remembering correctly. So
well, this it's more visible, obviously, when it is a pitcher, just because the camera is on them, and so if you see something scrawled on their cap, then it's going to be unavoidable because they're the stars when they're in the game. So it was a sad display, and I guess it was so. Sam Hentges was the one who did not wear the cap, right?
Correct.
But didn't write anything on the cap. And then the other guys who put the Genesis verse on there, it was Landon Roop, who started the game, JT Brubaker, and Ryan Walker. And they all did the Take Back the Rainbow movement, Genesis verse, which is this idea of, hey, you can't have the rainbow. We want the rainbow. The rainbow's ours. God gave us the rainbow. And in their explanations for this, they all just said, oh, no hatred. We don't hate anyone, but we disagree with it. We don't support it. We're religious, and thus we are not going along with the rest of the team in doing this. And there was, wishy-washy statements from all involved who were wearing the caps, right? And, it was, there was a statement from the team, and it was, it was basically just like they can choose to do what they want to do, which was pretty much what Tony Vitello said also, just, up to the individual, right? And Logan Webb, who, didn't do a demonstration himself, but he basically just said, like, people can do what they want to do in the clubhouse. It's not divisive, right? Because he was asked if this was going to be a source of some division in the clubhouse, and he said no, and I doubt it will be, frankly. I'm sure he's right about that. The Giants' statement was, the San Francisco Giants are proud to support Pride Night and the LGBTQ plus community. Baseball should be a place where everyone feels welcome, respected, and valued. We also respect that individuals may make personal choices about participating in team activations. Ugh, I hate that word, activations.
Jeez.
It's not the worst thing about this, but it's up there. We understand the choice by individual players has caused pain and anger to many in the LGBTQ plus community, and we are sorry for that. Those choices do not change our organization's commitment to inclusion, belonging, and creating a welcoming environment for all. We remain grateful to our fans, partners, employees, players, and coaches who help make Pride Night a meaningful celebration.
Yeah.
And Vitello's line was, when asked whether this was discussed beforehand, he said, not really. I mean, just kind of a general knowledge of the individuals have the freedom to do what they think is best. And I think I think it was Hentges who said that they had talked about it in the clubhouse for a while leading up to this. And so obviously it was a matter of some discussion, but there was no kind of team policy or decision here. It was just to each his own, basically. And the Logan Webb quote that I was alluding to, he was saying, you can't force anybody. If they're grown-ups, they can make their own decisions, and was asked about the division. No. There's a lot of guys in here that have their personal values and beliefs. It's a big league clubhouse. You've got guys from different countries, different areas. I grew up in a different place than, say, Landon, than a lot of guys. I have different feelings. It will not divide the clubhouse at all. At the end of the day, I just want to win baseball games, something that the Giants have not done a lot of, including that game. Sometimes those sort of things take away from that. That's important to me. Hopefully today we can get back to winning baseball games. So, that's what happened.
And I have to correct myself. They did not, I believe, have a position player who participated for some reason. I thought they did.
Yeah, just the pitchers. I don't know why it's so pitcher centric. It's odd.
I'm fairly animated about this one, and we've talked about sort of different versions of this same quote unquote protest in the past, so I don't need to rehash all of that. I'll just say, like, it's time for the league to make a decision about this stuff. And if these guys want to have what they view to be a principled stance that isn't hateful, mind you, just invalidating a major part of the community's understanding of themselves, they should go on the restricted list. Like, that's it. Like, we need to be done with this stuff. There is clearly a line that the league would draw if the players in question decided to express other values. I can't imagine, for instance, the league or the Giants, for that matter, having any patience for a player who, say, refused to wear 42 on Jackie Robinson Day. They draw a line there, right? They should draw a line here, too. These events are about celebrating the shared humanity and dignity of disadvantaged communities. Sometimes they're about celebrating communities where maybe the dominant narrative around the event isn't one of historic disadvantage, but that's the purpose here. It is, and I understand that pride events sometimes pride events get criticized from a left-leaning perspective, right? As capitalism exploiting an understandable desire on the part of the LGBTQ plus community to find fellowship and acceptance in the ballpark. But that's what these events are about. They're about selling hats, sure, but they're about that too. They're about the part of the Giants statement that I do agree with, which is making the ballpark a place that is safe for everyone, that is able to be enjoyed by everyone. And if Landon Roop has a problem with that, then he should go on the restricted list and sacrifice a game check. Okay? Put your money where your mouth is. I'm so tired of this mealy-mouthed garbage on the part of these guys. I'd have more respect for it in a weird way if they were willing to be bigoted with their whole chests, right? I think if you ask Blake Trinan about it, he might accommodate you on that score because he strikes me as a true believer in any number of ways. But the notion that they are going to be able to engage in protest, which is what they are doing, even if they refuse to use that specific language because they want to be able to express their beliefs but not have anybody be mad at them, then sacrifice something. Sacrifice something, Landon. If it matters that much to you, then tell your team that you are willing to put your money where your mouth is, put them on the restricted list, don't have them at the ballpark that night. Like, we need to draw a line around this stuff. At the end of the day, they're at work. They're in a workplace. If they were accountants and they tried to pull this kind of stuff at work, they'd get hauled into HR, right? We wouldn't tolerate this stuff. And we clearly, like I said, would draw lines around other events at the ballpark. And I know that a lot of the comparison that gets made online is like, well, what if one of, the liberal players in the league, however many of them there are, decided that, they are pacifists, they're not going to support foreign wars, and so they are going to have some sort of Bible verse or commentary on their cap on Military Appreciation Night or Veterans Day or Memorial Day. There are so many of these days where we are saluting the armed services. And I don't think you even need to make that kind of equivalence, right? I think it's fine for the league to say, look, we have a certain number of events in our ballpark in a given year that are demographically oriented, right? They're to celebrate Pride Night. They're to celebrate, Mexican Heritage Night or Italian Heritage Night, to pick a group of whites, right? They're there to celebrate and uplift one of the communities that make up our broader community of fans. I think it's fine for the league to say that you don't get to engage in protest behavior on those nights, right? On nights that are about demographic characteristics that are immutable to the individual. And if you're doing that, then you don't get to come to the ballpark that night. You don't get to be at work and you don't get to be compensated for it. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at on this stuff. And if they're going to insist on doing this, at least have the courage of your convictions to articulate in terms that we all understand, even if you aren't willing to say it, are about exclusion, are about sort of contesting these incredibly important aspects of a person's life and understanding of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. I don't like the Catholic Church's stance on abortion, but at least they're opposed to the death penalty too, right? There's a consistency to it. There is a willingness to be on the line about it. I think they're wrong about the abortion piece, but they're embracing their understanding of the world. If Landon Roop doesn't think that his understanding of the world is hateful, someone needs to educate him to the contrary, because that's what it is. He might dress it up. He might make it about, the rainbow and it's this covenant with mankind. But he invited people when asked what he would say in response to someone who thinks that his behavior is disparaging to the LGBTQ plus community. What would he inspire? What would he tell them to do? And he told them that they should read the Bible. Mm-hmm. So You're proselytizing, Landon. That's your understanding of this. And the reason you want them to read the Bible is because you're hoping that they'll look in there and spot something and go, I was wrong all along. I'm not gay, actually. And that's just not how it works.
Well, we've been here before. Yeah. And we'll probably be here again because this keeps recurring. And as long as the policy stays the same. And yeah, obviously, he could put this Bible verse on his cap any night if he wanted to, but they choose this night. Obviously, that's to make a certain statement. Right. And when Roop said, there's no hate at all, it's just what I stand for and what I stand on. I believe in God. And yeah, that's me. Obviously, belief in God is not it's not a prerequisite that you not support LGBTQ people. So, that's one interpretation of that belief. And he did say, yes, first of all, as a believer, I would push them to read the Bible. I think God has blessed me in so many ways, and I don't think I'd be here right now if it wasn't for him.
Couldn't bless you with a good start.
Yeah, that's true. There's no hate at all. We live in a country where you're welcome to believe what you want. And that's true.
That's
true. He can believe what he wants, and he's welcome to, and everyone else will judge him accordingly. Right. Now, the question is then, can you display what you want? This is not necessarily a free speech issue. It's a private business, right? You can set your policies. Teams have uniforms. You have to wear the uniform. Right. It's uniform. That's the goal. That's why it's called a uniform. There are rules.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is the part of Tony's statement that is completely ridiculous. It's sorry, I'm going to just swear. What the f*** are you talking about, man? You mean to tell me that if a guy walked in and decided that he was going to wear a different jersey than the rest of the club that night, that you'd be like, yeah, guys are being dudes, they're expressing themselves? No. You tell him to go back to the locker room and put his actual jersey on. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Stop pretending this is a limitless, free environment. That's not what it is. It's a workplace that has uniforms.
Yeah,
put it on.
There are rules that prevent you doing this sort of thing. If you wanted to just stick to the letter of the law and say they can't do this because of this rule, you could point to language in the rule book that says, everyone has to wear the same thing. And if you wanted to have some penalty associated with it, you could. There was also, I think, what Henches said. He said, I grew up, it was more of a religious belief. I grew up as a Christian. I've grown in my faith. There wasn't any hatred behind it. It's just something that I feel like I was forced to support when I don't morally support it. And then reiterated, there wasn't hatred behind it. That's misinterpreted. I don't hate the LGBTQ community. It's something I believe and talk with teammates and family, and they support it. There was no intentional hate. He said, that's interesting. We have these hats, and we're supposed to wear them if we support it. If we don't, then you don't have to wear them. We have that choice, just like they have their choices too. So he's likening, I guess, being gay or queer or whatever to just the choice to wear a cap. And understand that as humans, we all have choices that we can choose to do and do whatever we want, but it's not something I support at the end of the day. I want the message heard that there's no hatred. Okay. So what he's saying, I mean, I guess he's saying I don't want to stone them or something, they shouldn't be put to death or whatever, but he's just in saying I don't morally support it, he's making it sound as if it's just, it's a personal choice, to be gay or not gay or whatever. And I think they made the wrong choice. I don't support it. You can't just kind of casually not support it. It's just something that is kind of core to a person's identity. And so if you just say, I don't support it or I disagree with it, but no hate, to each their own. Well, it just doesn't work that way, because when it's something that's so
polka dots.
Right. It's not a fashion choice of wearing a Pride Night cap or not. It's something that is so essential to someone's identity that when you say you don't support that, you are invalidating them as a person, basically. Right. So you can't really walk that line. And again, like they could just come out and say that, but they always try to couch it in, no hate, but it is kind of inherently, there is some level of, even if you're not like feeling furious or something, it's just like there is kind of an inherent hate to it or intolerance to it. And so when it comes to the caps and everything, I mean, making it compulsory on the one hand, like if these players just had to kind of go along with it, it would be a hollow gesture, obviously. Like if they don't support it and they're just wearing a cap because they have to, well, there's not much actual support there, but it is supportive in the sense that the problem
doesn't make it about them. That's the difference, right?
The real problem with this,
is
the state of affairs, is that, this is all anyone has been talking about. This has been one of the biggest stories in baseball for days now, and it ends up doing the opposite of what a Pride Night is designed to do, which is to say, hey, we see you and we support you and you're welcome. And I guess we could just concentrate on the fact that most of the players wore the cap and were supportive, but inevitably it ends up being about the few who don't. And that has been the case over and over again. And then that just reinforces the idea that there is a lot of homophobia in baseball and elsewhere, but specifically baseball. And these guys kind of become the avatar for that. So it really ends up backfiring or sending the wrong signal. And so I guess there are two ways that you could handle this. One is, as you said, you just make it an ironclad policy. And if you do want to opt out of it, then you can't be active. You can't be in uniform if you won't wear the uniform that everyone else is wearing. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just not do this anymore, still have Pride Nights, but not have the compulsory cap portion of it, which I guess came in 2021, I think, was when the Giants added the cap portion. So, you could say, well, guys obviously have different beliefs about this. And instead of sort of foregrounding the guys who opt out, because even if you had to put them on the restricted list or something, that would still be a big story, right? Sure. It would still sort of reinforce the idea that there is a lot of resistance. If you had a Pride Night, now, it feels like kind of a concession. It feels like letting them win in a way. And maybe it is
letting them win.
Yeah, if you do it just to avoid any controversy or backlash or anything, then it is sort of surrendering. And, we've seen that in other leagues like the NHL, and the NHL briefly banned any sort of display, like banned Pride tape. And then there was a backlash to that. And they said, okay, you can wear it. We're not going to prevent people from wearing these things. It could be like that, where it's just, hey, if you want to show your support, you can and should. Kind of like, some players do. I mean, Woke King Spencer Strider, right? He went to an event. He didn't have to go to an event, but that's, above and beyond not just wearing the cap, but actually really demonstrating your support and inclusiveness and welcoming people. And there aren't a lot of folks in MLB who take that step really, but there are some. And so I guess you could just say, like, why court controversy like this? You could have your Pride Night events and just, if there are people who don't support it, you'd never know about it, maybe. I mean, who knows? These guys very may well have just like put the verse on their cap anyway because it was Pride Night. So maybe even if you didn't compel them to wear the cap, they would still just object to the event itself. Who knows? But that's a little less likely. So I don't know. Like, that does feel kind of like the coward's way out, or kind of like letting this vocal subset of prejudiced people set the policy for everyone, which is bad. This is also not ideal. So, it's like you can't force people to think a certain way and believe a certain way, obviously, if they're right about that. So as long as you're going to have some holdouts, I don't know. This is not good. It's not great that this becomes the headline.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts.
Yeah.
The first of them is, I'm reminded of Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek First Contact, discussing the strategy of sacrificing whole worlds to the Borg. And we have to say, the line must be drawn here, this far, no further, which is sort of a kitschy way of getting at it, but I think expresses my sentiment well. I think that one of the things that the last couple of years of American life, and what an optimistic way of describing that, the last decade of American life has taught me is that, boy, I sure didn't appreciate the value of quiet bigots before. Part of what these events are trying to do is establish that, the ballpark is for everyone, that the Dodgers or the Giants or the Mariners or the Diamondbacks or whomever see the value in this community and want them to feel like they are part of an integrated part of the fan base, right? That there's a place for them. I think another maybe more subtle thing that they do is establish in fans an institutional expectation of the club, which is to say, you will be safe here. You will be safe in this ballpark. If you are holding hands with your same-sex partner, if you are yourself wearing a pride hat, if you have, short hair and a septum piercing, whatever the expression of it is, you will be safe here. And so if you concede the validity of this perspective in your players, if you fall back, right, and you say, look, the controversy, the back and forth, it's not worth it. We're just inviting them to say bad things. Next year, no rainbows on the hat. One of the things you're communicating to your fan base is our support of you is contingent, and your safety here might be too. And I think that they have that when you are a gathering place for the community, you have an obligation to your fans to make them feel safe there. And you have a particular obligation to do that when they are part of a demographic that historically has not been safe there. And so I think it's important for teams to hold the line, not only because of the message of inclusivity, not only because they should establish an expectation that their players will be ambassadors of the team to the community, understood broadly, but because there are people who are going to those games who right now feel less safe than they did before. And that will make their experience of that will be exacerbated by institutional retrenchment. And I agree with you. It sucks that even if the course of action was, okay, if you can't be quiet about your displeasure, because you're right, Landon Rip is entitled to believe whatever he wants to believe. He is entitled to think whatever he wants to think. And he's entitled to say stuff about it. I have to concede that. That doesn't mean that he can't suffer consequences from his employer for expressing those views. I have no interest in trying to use, well, not that I have no interest. I am skeptical of the ability of baseball as an institution to be an effective vehicle and vector for most of these guys to find their way toward what I understand to be a very Christian sense of love toward their fellow people. Mm-hmm. But I do have confidence in the ability of Major League Baseball and its clubs to use the threat of a game check to get them to shut the hell up. And if he has the courage of his convictions and he wants to say something about it after the fact, well, he can do that. And we'll be able to draw conclusions about these guys going on restricted list in advance of a Pride event. We'll be able to kind of guess at what's going on in much the same way that we could use
the vaccines, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But a couple of weeks ago, when Trinan made his statement, earlier that day, the Dodgers unveiled a permanent exhibition to honor Billy Beane and Glenn Burke. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing. It's at Dodger Stadium. It's going to stay there in perpetuity. It honors the legacy of those men. It got at least partially overshadowed because Blake Trinan decided that that day needed to be about him. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is a real shame because I think their decision to honor Burke and Beane, and by the way, I am noticing that in the video that appeals on the MLB.com story about this, they have Billy Beane, as in the A's executive, in the video. Sometimes it's right in the headline, but to anyone listening from MLB.com, you might want to update the macros on that video because, as far as I know, Billy Beane is a straight man, at least the one who's still alive. Mm-hmm. I think it suggests an understanding on the part of the team of the import of those men's legacy in the game. And I think that Blake Trinan's decision to refuse to wear the hat suggests we still have a lot of work to do. And I think we need to be pushing forward with that work rather than allowing a couple of small-minded men to redefine a night that means a lot to a lot of people and that I think is important. Because how do you go then to the Rangers, the lone holdout, and say at some point, hey, you have to get in line on this. If you're going to sort of kowtow to Blake Trinan, to be clear, the quality of the player shouldn't matter here, right? If tomorrow, and I don't think he would do this, so I don't even want to tarnish him with the suggestion, but if tomorrow Shohei came out and was like, I'm not wearing the Pride hat next year, I think there should be consequences for him too. So the quality of the player shouldn't matter. I would imagine if I were a Dodgers fan, I might like there to be roster consequences for Blake Trinan because then maybe Dave can't fall in love with him in October. But I think that the league and its teams need to decide to take this seriously and to actually have there be consequences because we require a lot of players. We require a lot of players when they might not want to do it, but we understand that part of being a Major League Baseball player is being an ambassador for your club. Mm-hmm. And there have been times when the league has said, hey, this is crossing a line for us. I know that we've seen some retrenchment on it in recent years, but the league said, hey, you can't make your rookies dress up as women as part of hazing. Mm-hmm. There's no place for that. Women work for MLB clubs. Women root for MLB teams. You are not honoring them. You are using them as a degraded version of masculinity to haze rookies. That's a no-go for us. So the league is willing to do this stuff. The fact that it intersects with religion is what makes people antsy. But I would just say that your private religious belief does not invalidate the humanity of other people. And if you think it does, that's a thought best kept to yourself.
And it is a pretty powerful gesture to have the players wear these things on their uniforms.
Yes.
It is one thing to just have a Pride Night event at all and signal some organizational support, but to have the players, the stars of the show, wear these things, that is a pretty tangible thing. And even if it's empty in some cases, even if it's hollow, if it's just guys going along with it, even if they don't feel so supportive, it's something. And it does, I think, hit differently when it is the guys just wearing that as opposed to someone in the marketing department deciding to stage an event that they can probably sell some tickets to. And, this probably became an even bigger deal than it might have otherwise because it was San Francisco. And not that it wasn't a big deal when the Reyes guys did this years ago, but being in San Francisco, it's a bigger deal because of the community there. And I understand that people come from different places and backgrounds, and they get exposed to different things, and you develop different beliefs based on your upbringing and all the rest. I saw some people sharing in the wake of this something former Giants pitcher Jeremy Affeldt wrote, and this was in his memoir, which was published in 2013. But he talked about his evolution in thinking. And, this was more than a dozen years ago. Attitudes were a little bit different. But he wrote, I didn't leave my hotel room when we came to play the Giants or A's. I didn't want to go out or see anyone. There was a profession of being wrong. I've come to that from a deep angle. I'll probably get a lot of flack from the church for it, but I believe I'm right. There's a chapter in there. This is him talking to the AP about his book. There's a chapter in there of me coming to San Francisco and being hesitant because I had homophobia and now I don't, which is funny. Makes it sound like, some kind of disease you can contract, which I guess is not entirely inaccurate, but he had homophobia. Now I don't. He was cured. I see more San Francisco as a city of love and a city of passion and compassion. It's unbelievable, this city. To see that and to have my heart change as a city I did never want to come to a city that I'm so thankful I'm going to be a part of for a long time. It talks about that. For me, it was an awesome deal. So it is possible to have a certain perspective about it and then to mature and to grow and to learn. And maybe being in San Francisco was part of that for him because of what he saw and experienced. And these guys, for whatever reason, have not had that same epiphany, have not had that same conversion, you could even call it. And so I don't know, what it is about Affeldt that he was able to kind of confront that and realize and change. And these guys have not. But yeah, it is not a good state of affairs. I think they do kind of have to pick a lane here. And, if they were to pick a lane, given just the way the wind is blowing and everything, and maybe this will change. But if anything, I would expect them to take the way out of we're not even going to have people do this anymore because it just leads to bad press and PR. But I think if they went the other way and said we're actually going to hold you to this, it does seem sort of untenable to do it this way and to have every year be about the very, very small minority, which fortunately it is. It's a handful of guys, but those handful of guys then really dominate the discourse about this. And maybe that's what they want. And, I'm sure they don't want the heat that comes with this, but maybe they want to, get their views out there, and they have. And it does lead to it being the opposite of feeling supported when these guys' views get highlighted and when no one else really in the game or in that clubhouse pushes back on it. And, I get being a coworker, being in a workplace, like it sucks to have to expect their teammates to have to say something like the team. If it's a team policy, then that takes the onus off of Webb or whoever or Vitello, who obviously is, former.
God forbid the manager lead the clubhouse.
Yeah. And you look at, past Giants managers, Gabe Kapler, for one, were very supportive about all this. Like, you have to think that Vitello's presence here, I don't know his personal beliefs or whatever, but obviously, he was pretty unwilling to take any sort of stand here in the way that even other managers have. So I don't know whether he explicitly or tacitly signaled that this was going to be fine with him, but you have to think that maybe that had something to do with it.
Most of what I've said here has been about the relationship between the external community, external from the clubhouse, the fan community, and how subsets of that community relate to the club, relate to their understanding of fandom, their understanding of their own safety. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say that, there are other people that this communicates to, and it's the not out baseball players that exist in affiliated ball. the notion that this isn't a message that is being very personally received by some number of pro players seems ridiculous to me. And that's another reason for the team to have some kind of a strict policy, because at some point we may well encounter an out active player on a major league roster. And how does this wash over that individual or individuals? How does this wash over the queer members of the Giants staff, front office, the folks who work in business affairs, the folks who work out at their affiliates, right? You're in a workplace, and some of what you have to do is establish what are your institutional norms around this stuff. And I understand it's a weird workplace, and I understand that, this is like a contested question within other American workplaces. But I don't know, if you're voting the way I imagine people who feel compelled to do this vote, you just believe in at-will employment anyway. So
Yeah, and the Giants had a minor leaguer a few years ago, Solomon Bates, who came out as gay after he was released by the organization, like at the same time, I think, and said he wanted to open doors and everything, and that's why he made the statement. But he didn't do it until he was out of the organization, until he was no longer a member of the Giants, and might have been the case for any organization. But yeah, when that's the history here, when someone in this very organization does not feel comfortable coming out publicly while they're a member of it.
Also, just, again, imagine you're an accountant and the guy in the cubicle next to you is like proselytizing at work. You'd be like, we're at work, That's kind of weird to do, isn't it? To be at work and doing that? Now, I bet Landon Roop would say, well, isn't Pride Night proselytizing? Mm-hmm. And to that I would say, no. They're not trying to convert members to the cause. They're just trying to say we're here and we're part of this community and we get to be safe here. Fundamentally different project. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah. And it is, it's a weird workplace in so many ways. The accountant doesn't have to wear a cap at all. You don't have to wear a uniform. I mean, you might have a dress code probably, but it's a little bit different. You're not a public figure, so yeah. And so probably you're not quite as subject to corporate said we have to wear this today or something. And maybe people would be bothered by that too, regardless of whether, their beliefs were contradicted by it or something. But yeah, if people were to say, well, what if the Giants have a pretty right-wing owner, right? Charles P. Johnson. What if he took it upon himself to say, okay, now we're going to have, I don't even know what the counterexample would be, but some sort of night that we wouldn't approve of and we wouldn't support. And what if the team instituted that? Well, would you change your tune then? And you'd say, well, the players shouldn't have to do it then. They could just kind of conscientiously object because you think that is a moral stance. I mean, if there's a consistent policy that when the team has a uniform that you have to wear the uniform, and the team came out with some sort of uniform that I would find extremely objectionable and they held players to that policy, I guess I would be okay with that if it were consistent.
I get what you're saying. And
players could evaluate whether they want to play for that team, and there'd be a big backlash.
You don't have to concede that point, though, right? Mm-hmm. Being a conservative isn't an immutable characteristic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels stubborn, to be clear, but it's not an immutable characteristic, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is where we kind of run afoul of it. We don't need to concede this point. Mm-hmm. Stop conceding it as protestable. Mm-hmm. Like if we, in the state of California, especially, he couldn't say, I'm a conservative, so I'm not going to hire gay people. They're a protected class. Mm-hmm. No, stop. Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't have to concede it as protestable. And maybe I'm going to fall outside the margins on this one, but not of you specifically, but just generally. But it doesn't strike me as remotely contradictory or hypocritical to say, yeah, if someone is a pacifist and wants to write something on their cap, imploring peace in the face of Salute to Armed Services Night, I think that is a categorically different behavior than refusing to let Pride Night go unremarked upon. I just do. And I don't know if, people are going to agree with me on that one, but I don't think that you should get to do weird nonsense with your hat on that day, or Filipino Heritage Day, or Italian Heritage Day, or Mexican Heritage Day, or on Jackie Robinson Day. No. No.
Yeah.
Draw the line. Be Jean-Luc Picard.
That's never a bad thing. No. Yeah.
Very rarely. He was kind of like Moby Dicking it a little bit in that moment, and he was reminded that he should blow up the damn ship. But that doesn't apply to our situation. So I don't feel the need to litigate that part of the speech. Okay?
Yeah. And these pitchers would probably say they don't think that it is immutable, but you know what? Some people are wrong sometimes. So
we should just be more comfortable telling people when they're wrong. That's the thing about it. You can think whatever you want, Landon. You can think it quietly. You got a whole life outside of the ballpark. You can think that thought out there as loudly as you want to. You're at work. Put on the hat. We would have been spared so much trouble if the Flyers had just told Ivan Provorov, guess what, buddy? That's the jersey. Go warm up.
All right. Well, I will be without you again next time, but
I know.
You will be back.
I'll have another hole in my face.
Yeah, I know. Good luck with that. Yes, I know people would probably like to hear you podcast after having a wisdom tooth removed. And
well,
that
we
might
are
be
set to record on Wednesday, so who knows what I might sound like, but I will probably not be on painkillers by then, so...
Sorry, everyone. Yeah, you don't get to hear Meg hopped up on painkillers.
No.
Not this time, at least.
Not this time.
Yeah. I have thought, because I was reading this piece at Sports Business Journal about how teams are starting games earlier. You know how we see a lot of like 6:40 starts, and
we do.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, it's a concerted effort, and the start times are earlier than ever. And they had data in here about the percentage of games that start before 7 or 7:05, whatever the standard used to be, and they seem to find that fans prefer that it starts a little earlier, even in the pitch clock era when the games go faster. They still like getting out of there a little earlier. And I think that's good. And it certainly seems to have helped attendance, which is up a little bit again. It is a difference because, it was always 7:10, 7:05. And sometimes it's a little too early. Like the Guardians tried some 6:10s, and that was a little too early because, people got to get there from work. And so...
Yeah, you got to let people get out of work.
Yeah, it seems like maybe 6:40's the sweet spot. And I think this is all good. However, as a night owl, I feel like this is biased against me because I used to enjoy when games were on really late, and now they never are anymore. Yeah. And I think it's for the good of the game and for most fans, and so I will defer to them. But it does kind of make me sad when the games are over so early, just because between these earlier start times and the pitch clock and the zombie runner and all this stuff, I used to be able to count on those West Coast games would keep me company late at night when I was burning the 1 a.m. oil. I could just, there were games that were going often. And now that's just not the case. And it's a little bit sad every night when you have a full slate and then the last game goes out and you're bereft of baseball until the next day. And, it used to be a nice bit of background as I was working or whatever late at night. And now I can't count on baseball to keep me company anymore during those hours. So I have personally lost something in the equation here.
I couldn't believe how long those NBA Finals games were.
Yeah.
I was like, where's our pitch clock? My God, this is going on and on and on.
Oh, yeah. And they need to do something about late in the games and the fouling and everything. But that's an ongoing conversation. But I just know my fellow nocturnal types out there. And even when I was a kid, I would still be kind of a night owl, but not to this extent. And just to be able to put a game on the radio or something. If the Yankees were on the West Coast on a West Coast trip, I used to enjoy that. Even if I couldn't stay up to see the end of the game, I could kind of put it on the radio and have it be my lullaby, my baseball lullaby. So I miss it. I can't dispute that it's good. But through this season, through May 28th, 76% of weekday games had started before 7 p.m., which is, that's a lot. And they say that percentage will decline as the season goes on. But even in 2021, it was like 42%. And then in 2024, it was 66%. So, it's like 2/3 of games, if not more, are starting pre-7 now, and those suckers are going to be over before 10 in most cases. And so, what am I going to watch? What am I going to listen to? Won't anyone think of the nocturnal fans? We're out there. There are dozens of us. We need something to watch and listen to in the middle of the night too.
I was going to suggest something, but then I realized that it's an Apple show, so you've already watched it in all likelihood. I watched the first episode of Widow's Bay. What a fun time that was.
Oh, great show. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to scare me so bad. I'm going to have weird dreams, so this is a great ride.
It is good. Yeah.
I hope that I articulated myself okay on the Pride Night stuff. I think the Jean-Luc Picard comparison is apt, even if I didn't know what a Charizard was evolutionarily earlier in the... I just thought that there was like another guy after him, and apparently, according to the Pokedex, there is. So, like a special evolution. I don't know if he's a shiny, though. What are the... You know what I mean? Anyway.
Requests for a... Meg learns about Pokemon Pod.
I learn about Pokemon.
Yeah, there are multiple mega evolutions of Charizard, I think.
Okay, those I don't need. I just like let him be a flying flame type, like a fire type. That's what it's called. Hey, everyone, happy Pride. We love you.
Indeed we do, and I hope that this podcast at least can be an inclusive, welcoming, hospitable baseball place. In our Facebook group, we keep the rainbow banner up year-round because said supportiveness is not confined to June. By the way, I guess we can conclusively say that the Giants' thrusting celebration didn't exactly signal acceptance. Granted, it was different guys doing the thrusting and protesting Pride Night. Don't know if Landon Roop had thoughts on his teammates' homoerotic victory display, but seems safe to say that the thrusts were, at best, a neutral statement vis-a-vis sexual identity. Though speaking of statements, after we finished recording, MLB gave a statement to Outsports. The quote from Pat Courtney, MLB's chief communications officer, "The writing on the cap violates our rules, and consistent with normal practice, we have warned the players about future violations." Which, honestly, is more than I was expecting to hear. It's a slap on the wrist, if that, but still, a public statement, that's something. Pleasant surprise. Now, I guess what they do is they issue a warning to the player, and then the second offense, maybe there's a fine or something. I suppose that could be why Blake Trinan was not wearing the cap instead of writing something on the cap, though you'd think that could be a violation too. Anyway, if MLB is serious about this, it should have warned all the players preemptively. I wonder whether Kershaw got this warning too, but it really should be a send a memo around now. Hey, don't do this, as opposed to waiting for someone to do it and then saying, hey, don't do that again. Still, it's more than I expected, because it would have been easy for them to no comment or not respond to that request for comment at all. Also, Meg asked me to clarify on her behalf that when she was talking about Jean-Luc Picard and Moby Dick, he was doing an Ahabian thing with the ship. She is aware that Moby Dick is the whale. We deeply appreciate the support we receive from all of you, especially those of you who support us on Patreon, which you can do by going to patreon.com/effectivelywild and signing up to pledge some monthly or yearly amount to help keep the podcast going, help us stay ad-free, and get yourself access to some perks, as have the following 5 listeners: Christopher Fox, Kimona, Alexandra, Florian, and Eric Top. Thanks to all of you. Patreon perks include access to the Effectively Wild Discord group for patrons only, monthly bonus episodes, weekly unrestricted third episodes, membership in our Discord group, prioritized email answers, personalized messages, shout-outs at the end of episodes, potential podcast appearances, FanGraphs memberships, and more. Check out all the offerings at patreon.com/effectivelywild. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can message us through the Patreon site. If not, you can contact us via email. Send your questions, comments, intro and outro themes to podcast@fangraphs.com. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Effectively Wild on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, and other podcast platforms. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/effectivelywild. You can find the Effectively Wild subreddit at r/effectivelywild, and you can check the show notes in the podcast post at FanGraphs or Patreon or the episode description in your podcast app for links to the stories and stats we cited today. Thanks to Shane McKeon for his editing and production assistance. We will be back with another episode soon. Talk to you then.
Can you effectively sort through stats and players in your head? Isn't it wild to repeat them to all of your indifferent family and friends? They'll keep you company, they'll keep you sane on a long bike ride or a slow work day, making Ben waxing about a playoff race, or whose bat's high.